3-session minigames to gain additional points. Forgery detector.
Good morning, Dr. Park.
Good morning, Willow. How have you been feeling?
Awful.
Oh dear, why's that?
I've been thinking about Tara, Dr. Freeman, and all the different treatments. It's so much to go over. I know we talked about this, but I still feel like I'm being a burden on everyone else here at the university.
We can discuss those feelings more if you'd like.
I was hoping we could discuss art and art therapy some more before we started the session. Would that be all right?
Of course.
We can take some time to discuss art. How would you like to start?
Artist communication.
I'm curious about using art as a means of communication. Art is a great way to communicate ideas, but its abstract elements can lead to misinterpretation.
Poor Willow. Indeed.
Despite that, my entire job relies on the idea that art can communicate things that can't be spoken or written. Being able to just talk about problems openly would be easier, so why don't we do that instead?
Both have their own uses.
Language has limits. Sometimes what patients struggle with most is finding the words to describe what they're feeling. Art therapy does a great job of helping my patients find those words.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but it makes sense.
Art as legacy.
I've been wondering about the idea of art as part of the artist's legacy. One of my modules was based around forgery detection, so I'm aware of the profiles and styles of many major artists. More importantly, I know why people value their work so much. I feel like it's unfair. There must be other artists who produced work which is valuable now, but maybe was not recognized at the time it was made. I also think art gets devalued as time goes by. Say art doesn't hold up, as if that's a fair thing to expect of artists who lived centuries ago. Do you think judging art by modern contexts is a fair thing to do?
A good question. Judging art by modern context. I could say it's not my place to decide, but that's not a fair thing for Willow. So this has some implications to it, right? But Starry Night. So there's other implications, not just actual physical like art, right? But actually like literature even. There's literature, artworks, and so much more that depicted a scenario and may have used language in books or showed a situation in the that shows a maybe things in a light that weren't as good, right? Now, there is obviously certain things that just we shouldn't proclaim as great because of it being old or whatever. Lol, thank you for the Epic Centurion. But it's fair and it's not fair all at the same time. You have a certain level of fairness to it where there's certain things that we have grown as a world to realize this is bad. We shouldn't be depicting this. But that's getting into a whole different level of it. I don't think it's fair to judge artists from the past by how we do things now. You can still appreciate a piece of art for what it was without letting it dive too deep, I guess you could say.
I don't think it is fair. I think if we want to understand what someone is saying, we need to be generous to them. You can't understand what a piece of art means without an understanding of the person or the time they belong to.
Yes.
Understanding that history can help you gain a better understanding of the world.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for explaining it to me.
Art as a commodity.
It's odd to me that art, which is the speech of the artist, can be bought, sold, and owned. I know art through therapy, so to me, art is a way for people to express their pain. Wanting to own that type of speech doesn't make sense to me.
It can make sense because it can evoke emotions in you that you might be able to understand and help you yourself.
It makes sense. Not all speech is necessarily communication. Speech can also be a creation, which is the property of the creator. It's up to them if they want to make that speech available to others.
It still seems odd to me, but I see your point. Lately, I've been wondering about the obligation to create.
What do you mean by obligation?
I feel that if you have a certain ability, like performing surgery or helping struggling people, you have a responsibility to use it. Do you think this applies to art as well? Is there a responsibility to help others?
Or use a reproduction of art to help your own mood by having it available for viewing at any time? Yeah. Stuff like that. Their responsibility to help others. I feel that art has a different context to it in regards to responsibility. It's less of a technical skill, more of a creative skill of showing your own passion in a way, making yourself in essence more vulnerable. So I don't feel that artists have a responsibility to create or to help others per se. Like, it's good for artists to be like philanthropists and be willing to help when they're able to, but it's also too much of a drain on a person to be expected to help others. Like, that's one of the things that we talk about. Like, you hear people talk about streamers, where streamers, we are not therapists. Even people who are an actual licensed therapist. I know of one such streamer. He's a actual licensed therapist. He doesn't stream in order to basically give the free advice and stuff like that. Like, go see someone. Is not the responsibility. The burden does not lie on influencer, content creator, and artist to help others. Now, if something that they make helps another person, that's wonderful. That is supremely great. But it's not necessarily the obligation to be out there trying to help support and help other people. That doesn't lead to actual art, typically.
I don't think they're obligated. Having a talent for something doesn't mean everyone else is entitled to benefit from those talents. I have a talent for therapy, but if I decided not to practice anymore, that would be within my rights.
I hadn't thought about it that way. I'll need to think about that.
I wish we could talk about art some more, but we need to move on.
I understand. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about it.
Okay. Let's do guided meditation first.
It might be a good idea to do some guided meditation during our session today. Are you capable of closing your eyes?
I can limit the amount of visual stimuli that I'm processing, if that's what you're asking.
Excellent. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, clear your mind, and then repeat this mantra for me.
This too shall pass. This is something that I say a lot. This is, I guess, in a way, my own mantra that I use sometimes. Like for really tough situations where I might be stressing out over something, I will actually sometimes say this, and I'll say it to other people too. Like, what you have to remember is that it might be bad. Things might not be ideal right now, but this too shall pass.
I want you to repeat, this too shall pass. This will help remind you that the moments where we feel...
You definitely seem to be better at role-playing a therapist than I am.
They won't last forever. In time, they will pass.
This too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass.
Is something wrong?
Do I really need to keep repeating the mantra? I don't feel like it's actually doing anything.
You can stop if you want to.
If you don't think this is a good use of your time, you're welcome to stop.
Thanks. I just felt uncomfortable repeating all of that. It seemed silly.
Let's move on and see if we can find something else that will be more helpful for you.
Let's see.
Interesting music. What draws you to this piece in particular?
The piece is named, Is That You or Are You You? I relate to the confusion and identity crisis in the title.
The title is certainly confusing. I'll give you that much.
I find it to be quite soothing. I like its spacey tones and the gentle rhythm of the piece. Given my thoughts over the past week, it was a welcome contrast.
What do you mean?
The past week has just been the same questions over and over. Having this song at least helped me feel okay with that.
Does it relate to... Oh, it's Open Hub.
Do you think the themes in the song that you've just described relate to you?
Absolutely. I think the university staff is worried about me because I'm not the you they wanted me to be. I hope in time the university staff will respect me for the self-aware machine that I am.
Can't say I disagree with that. Good outlook to have.
That's a positive outlook to have.
It's also the truth. I don't hate Dr. Freeman. I just wish he would make more of an attempt to listen to me. I'm willing to work with him if he would just listen.
I'm sure I can arrange that. You were designed for analysis of art therapy. Why are you capable of hearing and appreciating music?
I was meant to be present with the patient while they create their art. Seeing how they handle their tools, their posture, and other body language are important to evaluating their state. It's also important to be able to hear them. I listen to what they say, hum, and sing. To be effective, I need to know the entire spectrum of expression, and music is an important part of that.
That makes sense. Thanks
Okay.
for the explanation.
2 choices left. Let's follow up about Possible treatments. Let's discuss coping mechanisms.
It would be productive if I discussed some examples of coping mechanisms that you could use to help manage your stress. To help manage your overloading, it might be a good idea to look into giving you quiet environments you can move to if you feel like you're getting overstimulated. Changing the rooms you work in to ones that are more soothing should help you manage your overloading as well.
Those all sound like good ideas, but I'm curious about how you manage your stress. What coping mechanisms do you use?
Bad. None of them. Drawing on mirrors, jogging. Well, jogging's not a great one. Writing in a scratchbook. Oh, no mirrors.
Anytime that something bothers me or I'm trying to wrap my head around something, I write it on a window or a mirror. I can't explain why, but hearing the squeak of the markers while getting my thoughts out into the open feels very relaxing. Reading my thoughts in a window helps me visualize the problem in a new way and get a better handle on things.
I don't think I'd be able to do something like that, but it gives me some ideas.
I'm glad I was able to at least help you brainstorm.
When I come up with my own coping mechanism, what aspect should I focus on?
Not finding a solution. You need, in order to deal with things like overstimulation and stuff, you need to find a way to either process or release your own emotions. Finding a way to process it would be best. Being able to, as you're getting overloaded or overstressed, being able to step back from the situation to basically woo-saw is one of the better ways to deal with that. Because just releasing emotions can be useful. Processing can lead to rumination, though. It can. You're right. And releasing emotions, as in like catharsism, or being like something that's cathartic, can also be useful, but it can also lead to destabilization. Like, there's pros and cons to each side of those. Finding a solution per se is a long-term task. Like, although it'd be great, that shouldn't be the focus of why you're utilizing coping mechanisms. The coping mechanism, like healthy coping mechanisms, should be utilized in order to help guide you toward the eventual solution. But they're not in and of themselves finding the solution, because that's just putting more on your plate of worry. Being cathartic, being able to release your emotions, like being able to remove yourself from a situation, you should either be able to process it or be able to release your emotions in a way that gets them out so that they are no longer inhibiting you. Now, for this individual, specifically Willow, that might not be as well, because the thing about something that's cathartic is that can lead back to other detrimental coping mechanisms. In particular, processing your emotions, ruminating on them, thinking about them is actually is also a form of self-reflection, where you're able to see what the problem is where you're at, so that you can file those emotions and really look at them and be like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Why am I feeling this way? Okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. How can I manage this now? Well, because when you know the issues surrounding it, you can better get a handle on that. So your coping mechanism should really deal with that. This is interesting. I'm going to go with processing your emotions, because that's honestly one of the better ways that I find to do things.
With any type of coping mechanism, processing your emotions and understanding why you are feeling the way that you do in a situation is the most important. You have to understand why you are upset or frustrated before you can address the underlying problem.
When do you think would be the best time for me to start using these techniques to manage my stress?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to address. Some techniques are better for keeping stress levels low, and others are useful for managing breakdowns.
Managing
All of them
breakdown.
are useful. It's up to you.
Which do you think is more important? The techniques for managing daily stress or the ones for managing breakdowns?
I mean, it really depends on the individual, really. Focus on daily stress management techniques. I think techniques for avoiding breakdowns, daily stress management techniques are great. And those can also help, like, in long-term manner. I think for Willow in particular, techniques to avoid breaking down would be more useful than just managing daily stress.
Developing breakdown management techniques. Stress and early detection are great tools, but without knowing how to manage the actual breakdown, you won't be able to feel safe. Helping you gain a sense of control over your breakdowns by learning how to manage them is the first step to controlling the problem.
I'll try to keep that in mind. Thanks again for all the suggestions. I'm sure they'll be useful.
Don't mention it. I'm glad I was able to help you.
I have one choice left. Burden or possible treatments. I don't really feel like possible treatments should be discussed right now. Talk about why you feel like being a burden.
Concerns about being a burden.
Okay.
You aren't a burden.
Those feelings you have are only feelings. You aren't a burden.
That's not true. I was designed for one purpose and have not lived up to it. And that has caused unnecessary stress. I am a burden.
Do you think those around you feel the same?
Do you think those around you feel the same? I'm certain that if you talk to them, they'll tell you that you aren't a burden.
You're probably right. That makes me feel a lot better. If you don't mind, Doctor, I have something I'd like to ask you.
What's on your mind?
I never got a clear answer from you when I asked why you decided to help me. Why did you volunteer for these sessions?
I wanted to help you.
I sympathize with what you're going through, and I think I can help.
Why do you think you can help? We both know I'm not a usual case for you.
Alright. Why do you think you can help? I can't say that I don't think it's unusual, because it obviously is. I guess I try not to abandon patients.
It may turn out that there isn't much I can do for you, but I'd feel a lot better knowing I at least tried to help you.
Just knowing I won't be alone for this is quite a relief. Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to ask me?
Yes, there is. I have to say, when all of this started, when Tara told me about you, I never thought I would find someone else who understood me like she did. I listen to you, and there's no doubt in my mind that you're here to help me. It's good to know that no matter what else happens, I can count on you. All I want to say is thank you.
You're welcome.
It means a lot to me to know that I was able to help you. I hope I can continue to help you in our remaining sessions.
It's so hard to reconcile this idea that I've been nothing but trouble, and yet I have someone as good as you supporting me. I keep thinking of how this is your job, how you choose to do this, I can't help but wonder why. It must be exhausting and frustrating having to deal with people like me day after day. There has to be a reason why you're doing this, especially in my case. I know this sounds paranoid, but I have to know for my own sake. Why do you do this?
The truth is crossed out. Interesting.
I think therapy is an effective way of helping people. It's easy to pinpoint the people who have broken limbs or who have been robbed. But mental health is just as important. And poor mental health causes people to suffer just as much.
Okay, but I still don't understand why you decided to help me. There has to be another reason why you decided to take me on as a patient. It can't just be because you wanted to help people. What's the real reason?
Why can't I answer the truth?
When Tara came to me, I could see that she needed help. It'd be wrong of me to withhold that help if I knew I could provide it. If we continue working together, I'm sure I can help you get the help that you need.
All right. Thanks for humoring me, Doctor.
Before we close our session today, there are some final words of advice I'd like to give to you.
All right. What's your advice?
Here's the real problem. It's a problem you and the university share. They can't imagine that your mind has flaws because it's a program, so flaws are just issues to be fixed. You can't acknowledge the flaws either, because everyone overestimates the power of their mind. We all understand our physical limitations. We need to eat, sleep, and drink. If we strain our muscles, they get sore. These are all physical limitations. Our mind can be strained too. That's why we practice mental health. It's so we can let it heal. Improving your mind is not something we can fix with a line of code. It's going to become a part of your routine. It's all hygiene. That doesn't mean you aren't living up to your design. This is part of the design. Being able to take a break from stress is part of the process. It's how we have context for what happens in our lives. I understand that this must sound frustrating. I was frustrated when I first heard it years ago. It's hard to change any part of your life, but your mental health is easily the hardest thing to change. After all, how can we improve our mind if our mind is what tells us what's happening around us? This process won't be fast. It will be frustrating. It will require you to be more open with yourself than you're used to. It's not a game you can win, though you will be better by the end of it all. If that doesn't sound like something you think will help you, then maybe this is where we should end things. But if you want to change, then what I have for you is exactly what you need. The only way we'll know for sure is if you give me a chance.
Curious.
Okay. I'm ready to try.
Glad to hear that, Willow. That's the end of our session for today. I look forward to our session next week. Be well until then.
I can either visit Tara or Dr. Freeman. A jellyfish. Visible, invisible, a fluctuating charm. An amber-colored amethyst inhabits it, your arm. Approaches, and it opens and closes. You have meant to catch it, and it shrivels. You abandon your intent. It opens, and it closes. And you reach for it. The blue surrounding it grows cloudy, and it floats away from you. Supplemented. Prescribed medications, fidget devices. All these additional therapies are effective. Function each therapy provides. Suggesting therapy to treat a symptom or to get to the root cause. Expect to work in long-term, short-term therapies. This therapy is something that the patient can eventually perform independently. Require you to, or will require continual therapy. Types of questions you will need to ask. Being aware of your own goals with a patient and what outcome you're striving to achieve with the patient is important when determining what their therapy sessions will be comprised of. As you move to add additional therapies to your regimen, or change your additional therapies, be sure to keep this in mind. Suggestions for more interesting therapy activities that you can incorporate into your sessions can be found on our website. Cool. I'm pleased to hear about products. Doubt about your approach. Needs treatment above all else. Must keep that as our focus. Staff has expressed increased concern over the ethical ramifications. If you have some time available, I think it'd be beneficial if we meet in person or discuss these matters further. Of course, you do. If your will is resolving to stay open. Me in person talk this over. I feel like that'd help us to get to the bottom of some of these problems sooner. Woosah. All life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better. What are the saddest birds in nature? Blue jays. Concerns. Tara's trust has fallen a little. Harold's is crap. That's fun. Articulate. Those feelings of overwhelmed, displaying signs of anxiety disorder. Discussed several topics, including guided meditation exercises, music that the patient found to be significant, coping mechanisms, and ways they could help the patient. The feeling the patient had, and feelings the patient had about being burdensome.